Water. It's all around us. But we often take it for granted. We don't think much about it until suddenly it's all we can think about.
You may remember the pictures from the water crisis 6 years ago in Flint, Michigan. Hundreds of angry residents holding up bottles of rust-colored water and demanding answers.
New investigation by the USA Today network is raising questions this morning about tap water nationwide. The report identified nearly 2,000 water systems used by 6 million people where excessive levels of lead were detected in the past 4 years.
The drought that has hit the western United States for years is getting worse. Last week, the federal government declared what's called an exceptional drought for much of the region.
There are plenty of problems in our world, but if our water systems aren't working, everything else takes a back seat.
Yes, absolutely. Water is needed everywhere, beyond just living our life.
This is Junhong Chen. He's a professor of molecular engineering at the Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering at the University of Chicago, and has one of the most interesting job titles I've heard, lead water strategist at Argonne National Laboratory.
Without water, it cannot drive our economy. And national security as well, because if there's no economy, no resource, no energy, our national security is endangered.
Chen is working on the cutting edge of water system engineering, trying to address some of the fast-approaching water problems in the world. But he says we're not moving fast enough.
Nationally, compared to energy or climate change, for example, we don't have a Department of Water that drives all the water activities and efforts. So I think there are several reasons that's making this problem less obvious and less urgent. But in fact, it's not true.
Luckily, Chen is on the front lines trying to stave off a water catastrophe, and he thinks the biggest solutions will actually come from AI and machine learning.
This is more like a powerful tool for us to enable some of the things that are impossible currently, right? So that's actually the most exciting role that AI could potentially play.
From the University of Chicago Podcast Network, this is Big Brains, a podcast about the pioneering research and pivotal breakthroughs that are reshaping our world. On this episode, how artificial intelligence can change water forever. I'm your host, Paul Rand. You are overwhelmingly focused on water. Did that come to you one day? You're taking a shower and you're thinking, this water stuff's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. So, obviously, water is an eternal topic of interest because water is essential to our life. Without water, we cannot live more than 3 or 4 days. Right? According to the United Nations, access to water is a basic human right.
Okay, well, I guess this question is what the average person thinks about water, and maybe that's changing as we have shortages. But are we as concerned about water as we should be?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, depending on who you ask this question. So most of us would take it for granted. Water flows automatically from our tap. And for us who are living close to the Great Lakes region, obviously, we even think water is plentiful, right? It's everywhere.
And fresh water.
Yeah, fresh water especially. So how nice. But, for people who are living in California and Colorado, Arizona, they are appreciating the water value because they don't have enough fresh water there. Actually, according to the National Public Radio, over the next 10 years, 40 out of 50 United States will experience water scarcity.
My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, that's a major issue.
Indeed. But water scarcity doesn't just mean a lack of drinking water.
Right. So water is needed to generate energy to power our house, our offices, our universities, schools, hospitals, etc.
When water fails, everything fails.
And we also need water to manufacture almost everything, from our food to clothes to cars and electronics. I'll just give you 2 examples, right? So to produce a hamburger, it takes 24 liters of water, which is about 600 gallons of water. We call it virtual water footprint, right? To manufacture a lithium-ion battery pack in an electric vehicle, that takes 7,400 gallons of water. Huge amount of water.
The way Chen sees it, our world faces a number of challenges with water.
First, overall, there's a limited supply of the renewable fresh water, right? Especially when and where it is needed. that really limits our economic development. But frankly, with the future of population and economic growth, and also we talk about climate change and urbanization, all these factors will further exacerbate the growing water stress, globally and nationally here as well.
Okay, what's problem number 2?
The second major issue is for our nation is the drinking water quality issue. We have seen, a Flint water crisis, right? So that's one example. There are many others. And that also brings about the environmental justice. Underserved communities typically have more water quality violations, based on the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency standard, right? So we need better infrastructure and more accessible treatment technologies.
Our investment in water infrastructure has not kept up with the growing need to replace aging systems. In its 2021 report, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave our drinking water infrastructure a C- grade. And if that wasn't bad enough, our wastewater infrastructure got a D+. Speaking of...
And finally, it's the energy consumption needed to treat this water. In the United States, about 3% of the electricity load is consumed by municipal wastewater treatment to remove all the organic matters and nutrients, etc. Right? So it is a very energy-intensive process. With the current administration's our goal to decarbonize our energy supply, we really need to do more to reduce energy consumption and reduce the emission of greenhouse gases related to the water treatment. So those are the major challenges.
Chen is engaged on each of these problems, and we'll get to specifics soon. But there's an overarching resource that Chen sees as crucial to address these issues: artificial intelligence and machine learning.
There are problems with rich data and complex interactions that are difficult for humans to fully comprehend. Right? For water research, there are a number of areas that are falling into this potential category.
One of those areas is contamination in our water supply.
So, for example, PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances, is a really complicated contaminant with many thousands of compounds.
PFAS are toxic chemicals linked to serious diseases like cancer, liver damage, and thyroid disease. And guess what? They never, ever, ever degrade. In fact, they're known as forever chemicals.
They are widely used as firefighting foams in our non-stick cookwares, in fast food wrappers, stain-resistant copies and fabrics, cleaning products, even in our personal care products. So it's everywhere.
They're so prevalent, CDC scientists believe PFAS chemicals are in the bloodstreams of nearly all Americans.
In order to manage this type of compounds, it's hard to build a physics-based model to come up with a material that can effectively separate all these different types of PFAS, right? Because water contamination can occur between the water treatment plant and our kitchen.
Because it's coming through pipes.
Pipes, yes, there are lead in our pipelines, and there are cracks in our pipelines. Bacteria can get in, right? So all kinds of contamination events can occur. So how can we selectively separate the different contaminants from water? Let's say I want to take out PFAS. Can I do that selectively? Because it's not a trivial task. There are many contaminants coexisting with PFAS. So if you wanted to take out PFAS, most likely, if others are present at a higher concentration, that's posing a big problem. That's where AI and machine learning can potentially come in to build different models based on what we have already learned about these chemicals and try to learn smartly to develop new materials and sensors and devices to be able to better manage this type of water contaminant.
Chen is developing sensors that could work with AI and machine learning to model and detect contaminants in our drinking water faster than any human ever could. It's work he started specifically to target lead.
Currently, to measure lead in the drinking water, you have to take water samples and send it to the analytical laboratories. And it's slow and it's relatively expensive. It costs, somewhere between $30 to $50 per sample. So average family will not be able to afford it. When you try to figure out the water quality urgently, you cannot have the data until a few days later, right? So our vision was really, can we develop sensors that can enable or empower the average person to measure water quality directly from their tap, right?
Right. So it could be, and the intention is that it's a consumer product, it sounds like.
Exactly. So one of the benefits for this type of products is, people can measure their water quality. So they are ensured, their water quality is good. If it's not good, they are going to find relevant measures to manage it, right? So this will help us restore the public trust of drinking water that has resulted from earlier water crisis, right? And also water utilities, they can use this type of low-cost portable technology to check out water quality rapidly. For example, after a severe storm, they wanted to see if there are bacteria in the water, right? So, it's going to be useful for them as well.
Imagine an affordable device you could pick up at any hardware store to quickly and easily test for lead at home. No complicated phone calls with labs and city officials, no scheduling contractors, or tearing up pipes.
The art is we are putting nanomaterials in action in this type of devices to make it highly sensitive to water contaminants. And they are also low cost because we can manufacture these chips and these transistors at large scale at relatively low cost. Through my startup company called NanoFX, we are trying to validate this prototype with our potential customers now as we speak. This past couple weeks, we just started it. So we're hoping to be able to introduce this product into people's hand to be able to measure water quality, just like, glucose testing at home.
If you listened to our last episode with UChicago President Paul Alivasatos, and I recommend you do if you haven't already, something Chen said probably perked up your ears. These sensors he's designed use nanomaterials, specifically nanocrystals.
Yes, obviously, that's very exciting. We're very happy to see, President Alivasatos joining us because he is the true pioneer of nanocrystals, right, for optoelectronic applications. And for our applications, we're using those nanocrystals for sensors, for energy devices. For example, we use a lot of tin oxide nanocrystals for detection of toxic gases. We are using a lot of gold nanocrystals to detect water contaminants and biologic species because gold is very stable, right? And also gold conjugation chemistry is well studied. That means, you can attach different functional groups onto gold really reliably. That enables us to be able to detect different things selectively.
But when it comes to reducing contamination and waste, there's an obvious problem here. Those electric sensors would themselves create waste and contamination in the supply.
All these sensors are part of the electronic devices. And one of the challenges with the electronic devices is the electronic waste. Right? We're generating a lot of this electronic waste.
How big of a problem is this?
It is a huge problem. And think about our personal electronic devices, right?
Yes.
Many generations of computers and cell phones. These electronics can have, all these plastics components and metals, and some of them are toxic. Plastics are not easily degradable in the environment, so they're creating a lot of environmental issues.
So what to do? Chen has a solution, a really, really fascinating solution, but it's kind of, well...
Yeah, so right now it's a science fiction.
Okay, so this project may be futuristic, but it's not quite fictional. It's being funded by the National Science Foundation, and it's very much based in real science.
Yes, absolutely. We're very excited about this project. We started in early January. It's really to realize the vision of converting plants into electronics.
Yes, you heard that right. Chen is working on making electronics out of plants.
Right, so we're growing plants from water, actually, in this case, so hydroponic growth of plants. And then we extract components from these plants, for example, cellulose and lignin, and convert these components into bio-based inks that can be used to print electronic devices, such as the sensors we just talked about, right? And also lithium-ion batteries, so that this battery-powered sensors can be further used to monitor the growth conditions of the plants so that it can precisely grow the plants to enable the best composition to drive the printing process and to achieve better performance for these devices. So we're producing biodegradable electronic devices from plants. And we can do this better with AI, machine learning, because we're going to be able to learn throughout this process to make this growth process better and better to achieve better device performance. And another important aspect of this project is, in the end, we're hoping to be able to demonstrate a cyber manufacturing platform. It's a virtual platform for everybody to access so that you can print your own devices from your home or from a nearby library using bio-based inks. Imagine in the future you wanted to have a sensor to monitor carbon monoxide. Just go there and get onto the online platform and print it out.
How far off is this type of goal in your mind?
I think in 5 years, this is a 5-year project. We're hoping to be able to demonstrate such a concept.
After the break, the connection between our water infrastructure and climate change, and what Chen wants to do about it. If you're getting a lot out of the important research shared on Big Brains, there's another University of Chicago podcast network show you should check out. It's called Not Another Politics Podcast. Not Another Politics Podcast provides a fresh perspective on the biggest political stories, not through opinions and anecdotes, but through rigorous scholarship, massive data sets, and a deep knowledge of theory. If you want to understand the political science behind the political headlines, then listen to Not Another Politics Podcast, part of the University of Chicago Podcast Network. Going back to our water challenge from before, we not only need to make water cleaner, but we also need to find a way to optimize how much energy our systems use, specifically wastewater systems. As with our first problem, Chen sees a solution in AI.
In wastewater utilities, they're trying to treat the water to the right quality, right? So, we treat the water to the right level of purity for the right type of applications, right? So thinking about drinking water versus taking a shower versus irrigation or toilet flushing. They all need different quality of water, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, for drinking, we need the highest quality water to start with. And for taking a shower, maybe not so much, because the more purity you treat the water to, the more energy it will take, right? So yes. By treating the water to the right level of purity for the right applications, you can save energy. AI machine learning can really help accelerate that process.
And that only becomes a big deal for all of us that have pets that think of the toilet bowl as a second water bowl source.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have to be careful of, at some point, leaving the lids down for the animals.
And frankly, if you look at the water challenge overall, the only way to get out of this is to recycle our wastewater.
Right. To
enable water reuse. That's the only way to really meet this limited water supply to address growing need for water. So think about this, we need to be able to take out any contaminants as needed to produce precisely the type of water we need. We also need to think about the type of energy source we are using to treat the water, right? Even better, we wanted to use renewable energy to treat the water so that it can reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Or we can recover energy already contained in the wastewater. For example, in our municipal wastewater, there are lots of organic compounds, right, and also nutrients. And there are critical materials such as, cobalt. And in seawater, obviously, this is even true, lithium as well. And those are critical energy and materials that could be recovered to enable better energy footprint and environmental footprint of our wastewater treatment. And that actually, I wanted to finally point out, there's a exciting opportunity there to recover critical materials that are important for clean energy applications. I talk about, lithium from seawater and some of the noble metals such as cobalt, that are important for energy storage applications. We need to be able to ensure adequate supply for this type of elements. But they are present, so we need to be able to recover those critical materials to enable a sustainable energy future. And also, water quality is directly contributing to our global health. But the other way around, wastewater-based epidemiology could help monitor community-level infection of diseases, such as COVID-19, right? So the virus shows up in the wastewater much earlier than the clinical confirmation. So that can be used as a way to monitor the potential pandemic outbreak.
And this doesn't just stop with wastewater.
Thermoelectric power plants, major water users, because they draw really large quantities of water to cool down the power plants. And they also dissipate a lot of heat through that process, right? So, we talk about, AI machine learning that can help us optimize the use of the cooling water. Depending on operating conditions, you can precisely dose the amount of cooling water needed so that you don't waste the water to be used for the cooling. Not too much, right? So that's one major aspect. And also the AI machine learning models can help improve the energy efficiency or conversion efficiency from the thermal energy to electricity so that you don't have a lot of heat to be wasted into the wastewater after the cooling. So those are some of the major opportunities there.
All of these ideas are exciting, but it doesn't mean we're off the hook. Chen emphasizes that even with these technologies, we all play a role in fixing these problems.
And obviously, all this will need public educations, educating everybody to conserve water and mitigate water challenges. For example, producing less waste, for example, plastics, into our water, right? That can be very important.
Like I said at the beginning, Chen has one of the best job titles, Lead Water Strategist at Argonne National Laboratory. And if you haven't heard of Argonne before, you probably should.
Yeah, Argonne National Laboratory is a national laboratory funded by the Department of Energy to research energy-related challenges from fundamental science to translational efforts so that we are on a trajectory to a safe and secure energy supply for our nation.
Argonne is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. Its rich history of scientific discovery includes all sorts of research on energy infrastructure.
And we're talking about clean energy supply, energy storage, energy management, etc. So it is a comprehensive research and development laboratory with a lot of cutting-edge facilities, world-class facility actually, including some of the user facilities that researchers across the nation, around the world, can come to do experiments and do computational efforts. And we also have world-class experts ranging from engineering to science to social science and life science, etc. A very wide range of expertise that are needed to address the energy challenge.
It's one of the consistent themes that I hear on the Big Brains podcast is, especially when we're thinking about science at scale, and I think you're touching on this, it's not only the science that has to be looked at. You're talking about public policy issues, you're talking about economics issues, you're talking about general society issues. So to solve even the water challenges that you're talking about, it's not just what you do in a lab. It has to be looked at holistically, doesn't it?
It's exactly true. It's a holistic solution. It's a convergent solution.
Mm-hmm. And being in a place, I imagine, not only at Argonne, but also I'm imagining here at the University of Chicago, is the ability to draw on expertise looking at all these areas, hopefully is one of the advantages of being at one of the world's leading research universities that we can impact.
Yes, that's our advantage. We have all these expertises, across UChicago and Argonne National Lab. Mm-hmm. And especially for UChicago, we are not only having a new engineering program here, a very frontier engineering program, but also we have traditionally been very strong in social economic sciences and political sciences, etc. we could potentially integrate those strengths into holistic solutions for water and energy problems for our society.